Xylo Rourke stood concealed within the shadows of his starship's cargo bay, his keen emerald eyes locked onto the figure attempting to bypass the cockpit security. The worn synth leather of his jacket rustled faintly as he unholstered his Nova blaster, a slight, knowing smile curving his lips beneath his neatly trimmed beard. The dim illumination of the dilapidated orbital dock Alpha barely filtered through the viewport, casting a spectral luminescence upon the crimson-skinned alien's lithe silhouette as she manipulated his control console. "What in the cosmos do you think you're doing aboard my vessel?" Xylo's resonant voice, edged with a dangerous amusement, echoed through the bay. The alien female froze, her long amethyst-hued hair flowing down her back like a silken waterfall as she slowly raised her hands. "I can clarify," she stated softly, her voice melodic and tinged with a hint of urgency. "Oh, this ought to be entertaining," Xylo chuckled darkly, keeping his weapon trained on her. "Rotate slowly." She complied, revealing features of striking beauty that seemed to possess an inner luminescence even in the low light. Her large almond-shaped eyes were a captivating shade of quicksilver, and her delicately pointed, almost fay-like ears twitched minutely as she faced him. The close-fitting crimson bodysuit she wore accentuated her form, though Xylo maintained his focus firmly on her hands. "I require your starship," she declared simply, meeting his gaze without wavering. "Lives are at stake." "Sweetheart, that's the most ancient ruse in the galactic charts," Xylo responded, his grin widening. "Devise another." "My designation is Lyra, and I speak truthfully," she insisted, taking a hesitant step forward. "My home world, Xylos, faces imminent peril. I possess crucial information that could avert a cataclysm, but I lack the means to reach them swiftly enough without a vessel of superior speed." Xylo arched an eyebrow. "And naturally, you concluded that commandeering mine was the most viable course of action." "I attempted to procure passage," Lyra explained, her quicksilver eyes flashing with mounting frustration. "But no one will convey me. The system is blockaded due to purported viral outbreaks." "Purported?" Xylo questioned, his intrigue piqued despite his better judgment. "A subterfuge," she revealed, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "The reality is far more dire. I implore you, I acknowledge the suspicious nature of this encounter, but I am devoid of alternatives." Xylo observed her intently for a prolonged moment, discerning the genuine apprehension etched in her eyes. His instincts, honed by countless cycles navigating the more ambiguous regions of the galaxy, indicated she was not fabricating the entirety of her tale. However, that did not imply he was prepared to surrender his vessel to a captivating stranger with a tale of woe. "Depart my ship," he commanded, gesturing toward the exit with his free hand. "Now." Lyra's shoulders slumped, but she remained rooted. "I cannot. Not when millions of lives hang in the balance. If you refuse to aid me, you'll be compelled to use that weapon." Xylo's jaw tightened. "Do not provoke me, princess." "I can offer compensation," she interjected swiftly. "More than you'd accumulate in a standard cycle of cargo hulls." "With what?" "That ornate bodysuit of yours," he scoffed, though his eyes narrowed with a flicker of interest. Lyra reached slowly into a concealed pocket, telegraphing her movements with deliberate care. She withdrew a small crystal that pulsed with an inner luminescence. "This is pure quantium, a substance of immense value on any civilized world." Xylo whistled softly, a low, appreciative sound. "That's either pilfered or neither," she replied firmly. "It constitutes my inheritance, and it shall be yours if you consent to transport me to Xylos." The crystal's radiance illuminated Xylo's features as he pondered her proposition. Quantium was sufficiently rare to command a substantial fortune, yet it was also rigorously regulated. Possessing it without the requisite documentation was an invitation for complications, precisely the sort of complications he was accustomed to navigating. "Continue speaking," Xylo instructed, lowering his Nova blaster slightly, but refraining from holstering it. "Elaborate on this cataclysm you seek to avert." Lyra clutched the crystal tightly, a flicker of relief briefly illuminating her features. "A clandestine faction within our governing council is collaborating with external forces. They intend to." A distant detonation reverberated through the orbital dock, abruptly interrupting her explanation. Xylo instinctively moved toward the viewport, maintaining Lyra within his peripheral vision. Through the grime-coated transparisteel, he observed flames ascending from the eastern sector. "They have located me," Lyra whispered, her complexion paling to a lighter shade of crimson. We must depart forthwith.
We.
Xylo arched an eyebrow. I have not yet acquiesced to anything, sweetheart. Another explosion, closer this time, rendered his decision moot. Through the viewport, he discerned several figures clad in obsidian combat suits maneuvering through the smoke, their weaponry clearly of military specification. Blast, Xylo muttered, holstering his Nova blaster. Assume the co-pilot's position. Attempt anything imprudent, and you'll regret that those individuals did not apprehend you first. Lyra nodded swiftly, sliding into the designated seat as Xylo occupied the pilot's chair. His fingers danced across the controls, activating the ship's systems. The engine thrummed to life, a resonant vibration that invariably evoked a smile from him. Those are not standard mercenaries, Lyra remarked, observing the approaching figures through the viewport. They are operatives of the Obsidian Horizon, a clandestine paramilitary organization. Never encountered them, Xylo replied, though the methodical manner in which the teams advanced indicated they were undeniably elite forces of some designation. That is the precise objective. They are a deniable asset utilized for. She was interrupted by the sharp ping of weapons fire impacting the hull. Defer the exposition, Xylo growled, engaging the energy shields. Presently, I require your assistance in justifying your presence aboard. Assume control of tactical systems. Weaponry and shielding are accessible on your console. Lyra's hands moved across the controls with surprising dexterity. You possess military-grade shielding harmonics. Let us simply state that this is not precisely a standard configuration freighter, Xylo grinned as he lifted the ship from the landing pad. Further weapons fire impacted the hull, but the shields maintained their integrity. The ship ascended through the smoke, its engines emitting a high-pitched whine as Xylo pushed them to their maximum output. Two sleek, obsidian interceptors rose to confront them, their weapon ports glowing ominously. This is about to become intriguing, Xylo muttered, his characteristic smirk returning. I trust you possess a resilient constitution, Princess. Simply pilot the vessel, Lyra responded, her fingers dancing across the tactical controls. I shall manage our pursuers. The subsequent minutes were a blur of evasive maneuvers and retaliatory fire. Xylo was compelled to concede that Lyra possessed considerable proficiency with starship weaponry. She managed to keep the interceptors at bay while he plotted their escape vector. As they breached the atmosphere, Xylo afforded himself a fleeting glance at his unanticipated passenger. She was intensely focused on her controls, her expression one of resolute concentration. Whatever her narrative, she was clearly not an inexperienced amateur dabbling in espionage. We shall be required to execute several hyperspace transits to elude any persistent pursuit, he informed her as they cleared the planet's gravitational well. You have yet to disclose precisely what is of such paramount significance that the Obsidian Horizon seeks your demise. Lyra finally looked up from her controls, her quicksilver eyes meeting his. The verity regarding the events transpiring on Xylos is more appalling than anyone could conceive. And if we fail to intervene, it will not be solely my world that succumbs. The vast expanse of interstellar space stretched before them as Xylo's ship sliced through the void, leaving their pursuers temporarily behind. The cabin fell silent, save for the subtle hum of the engines and the soft rhythmic beeping of the navigational array. Xylo glanced at Lyra, who remained seated in the co-pilot's position, her quicksilver eyes fixated on the tactical display. We have company, she announced, her melodic voice tinged with a note of concern. 3 vessels have just emerged from hyperspace. Obsidian Horizon signatures. Xylo leaned forward, studying the sensor readings. They are attempting to encircle us, to force us toward the Tempest Nebula. He flashed her a confident grin. Fortunately for us, I am acquainted with a few stratagems they are not. Lyra raised an elegant eyebrow. The Tempest is deemed impassable. The electromagnetic disturbances would obliterate any conventional vessel. Most vessels, Xylo corrected, his emerald eyes twinkling with a hint of mischief. This particular vessel possesses a number of modifications that render the impossible possible. As if to underscore his assertion, he executed a complex series of maneuvers that sent them spinning between 2 of the pursuing vessels. Lyra's hands flew across the weapons controls, deploying suppressive fire that compelled their attackers to break formation. Impressive, she conceded, a faint smile gracing her crimson lips. Both the vessel and the pilot. You have witnessed nothing yet, Princess, Xylo winked at her, pointedly ignoring the disconcerting flutter in his chest when she returned the smile. The pursuit continued for what felt like an eternity, a lethal ballet enacted amidst the stars. Xylo and Lyra functioned in seamless coordination, as if they had been piloting together for cycles rather than mere hours. Each time the Obsidian Horizon believed they had them cornered, Xylo would discover another seemingly impossible escape route, and Lyra would clear their path with precisely calibrated shots. During a fleeting respite, when they had managed to temporarily lose their pursuers within a dense asteroid field, Lyra finally elaborated on the nature of the threat they were fleeing. "The quarantine surrounding Xylos is not predicated upon any genuine contagion," she stated softly, her fingers absently tracing patterns on the control panel. "It is a mechanism of control. The ruling Concordat has forged a pact with something that has pledged to elevate our species to unprecedented heights of power and technological advancement." Xylo turned to face her, noting the way the starlight illuminated her features. "Something. They designate themselves the Ascended," she explained. "They are proffering to uplift our entire species. But the price?" She shuddered. "The price is our autonomy, our very essence. They do not desire allies, they desire vessels." "Vessels?" Xylo frowned. "You imply, like possession?" "More insidious. They intend to rewrite our genetic code, our very beings, to serve as ideal hosts for their consciousness. The Concordat members who have acceded to this, they have already initiated the transformation." Xylo felt a chill crawl down his spine. "And no one is resisting." "Those who uncovered the truth were either silenced or compelled to flee. I was affiliated with a resistance cell, but we were betrayed. I am the sole survivor who escaped with irrefutable evidence of the true events." She retrieved the quantium crystal she had previously shown him. "It is all contained within. Dokumentation, Genetiksequences, Kommunikationslogs everything requisite to expose the conspiracy." Their eyes met, and Xylo found himself drawn into those quicksilver depths. The cabin suddenly seemed considerably smaller, more intimate. He perceived the anguish etched in her eyes, the weight of responsibility she bore upon her shoulders. But also, something else. A nascent spark of attraction that mirrored his own burgeoning emotions. "That is the rationale for your attempted appropriation of my vessel," he stated softly. "You are not merely endeavoring to salvage your world, you are striving to preserve your entire species." "Indeed," her voice was barely above a whisper. "I apologize for my attempt to commandeer your ship. I was in a state of desperation." "Well," Xylo replied, leaning closer, "you could have simply inquired politely." The tension between them was palpable, a confluence of years of solitude and the intensity of their shared predicament coalescing into something neither could deny. Lyra's hand reached out, her crimson skin warm against his. "Xylo," she breathed. The ship's proximity alarm shattered an ascent moment. 4 additional Obsidian Horizon vessels had materialized, effectively blocking their escape route. "Hold that sentiment," Xylo growled, his hands flying across the controls. "We have a conflict to address." The next few hours were a maelstrom of desperate maneuvers and near-catastrophic collisions. They plunged into the outer fringes of the Tempest Nebula, exploiting the electromagnetic disturbances to mask their vessel's signature. Xylo's modifications proved invaluable, enabling them to navigate regions that would have disintegrated less robust ships. During a particularly harrowing encounter, Lyra was thrown from her seat, landing squarely in Xylo's lap. Neither of them seemed particularly inclined to rectify the situation, even after the immediate danger had subsided. The physical contact sent a jolt of electricity through both of them, a potent reminder of the undeniable attraction simmering beneath the surface. However, duty beckoned. They had a blockade to breach and a world to liberate. As they approached the perimeter of Xylotian space, the formidable blockade materialized before them, dozens of warships arrayed in an impenetrable barrier between them and their destination. Xylo felt Lyra tense beside him. "There is no conceivable passage," she whispered, despair creeping into her voice. Xylo took her hand, squeezing it reassuringly. "There is always a passage, Princess. One merely requires sufficient audacity to attempt it." She turned to him, their faces mere inches apart. "You are no longer undertaking this solely for the Quantium, are you?" "No," he admitted, reaching up to brush a stray strand of amethyst hair from her face. "I am not." Their eyes met, and in that instant, both comprehended that there was no turning back, neither from their mission nor from the burgeoning connection between them. The blockade loomed ahead, yet neither was focused upon that impediment. In the hushed confines of the cockpit, surrounded by the celestial tapestry, they had discovered something neither had anticipated, a bond that transcended species, a passion that defied rational explanation, and an affection that imbued them with a fortitude to confront whatever challenges lay ahead. Orbital control, this is supply vessel Star Wanderer, requesting clearance. Xylo spoke confidently into the comm, his fingers intertwined with Lyra's beneath the control panel. Transmitting credentials now. The fabricated documents had cost him a considerable sum from his last underworld contact, but they appeared impeccable. The ship's exterior had been temporarily modified to replicate a standard Xylosian supply vessel, its weapon systems meticulously concealed. Credentials received, Star Wanderer, a bored voice replied. Stand by for verification. Lyra squeezed Xylo's hand, her quicksilver eyes meeting his emerald ones. The preceding days of preparation had forged a bond between them deeper than either had foreseen. Between strategic planning sessions and near misses with patrols, they had discovered a connection that transcended their disparate origins. Compose yourself, princess, Xylo murmured, brushing his thumb across her crimson skin. We have this. She smiled, a sight that still caused his heart to accelerate. I know. It is merely, being this proximate to home, cognizant of the atrocities transpiring there. We shall thwart them, he promised. The unwavering determination in his voice surprised even himself. What had commenced as a lucrative endeavor had metamorphosed into something profoundly personal. The comm crackled. Star Wanderer, proceed to docking Bay Gamma 7. Maintain current vector. Xylo guided the ship forward, past the colossal warships of the blockade. Each passing moment felt protracted, the tension within the cockpit thick enough to cleave with a vibroblade. They are scanning us, Lyra whispered, monitoring the sensor readings. Permit them, Xylo replied confidently. The cargo holds are replete precisely as our manifest delineates, medical provisions and standard rations. They will uncover nothing untoward. What the scanners could not detect was the quantium crystal, the concealed data, or the true objective of their mission. Nor could they detect the way Xylo's heart hammered against his ribs every time Lyra glanced at him with those captivating quicksilver eyes. As they approached the designated docking bay, Lyra rose and moved behind Xylo's chair, her hands resting lightly upon his shoulders. The touch sent a renewed surge of electricity through both of them, a tangible reminder of the passion they had been circling since their initial encounter. Once we dock, she stated softly, her breath warm against his ear, we shall have 6 hours before the subsequent shift change. 6 hours to convey the data to my resistance contacts. Xylo turned his head slightly, their faces a hair's breadth apart. Ample time, he murmured, his voice husky with suppressed emotion. The docking procedure proceeded flawlessly, their ship settling into the bay with practiced precision. As the engines powered down, Xylo and Lyra remained motionless, savoring the momentary tranquility before the impending storm. I never envisioned returning here under such circumstances, Lyra admitted, moving to perch on the edge of the control panel. With a human of all beings. Xylo rose, stepping into her personal space. Disappointed. Quite the contrary, her hand came up to trace the line of his beard. My people have historically perceived humans as rudimentary, volatile, perilous. And now. His hands found her waist, drawing her closer. Now, I comprehend why the Ascended harbor such trepidation regarding your species. You are passionate, adaptable, impossible to subjugate. Her fingers tangled in his dark hair. You evoke sensations within me I never believed attainable. Their lips met in a kiss that had been building since that first encounter in his cockpit. It was like touching a live conduit, electrifying, hazardous, and utterly addictive. Xylo pulled back slightly, studying her flushed features. Your people might disapprove, he teased, though a subtle question lingered in his eyes. Lyra laughed softly. My people are on the verge of being transformed into mindless receptacles for an ancient race. I believe their disapprobation is the least of my concerns. Her expression sobered. Furthermore, you have demonstrated more humanity in these fleeting days than my entire species has exhibited in centuries. The subsequent hours were a whirlwind of intimacy and tenderness, their bodies discovering a harmony that defied their disparate origins. In the quiet aftermath, as they lay entwined within the captain's quarters, Lyra traced patterns upon Xylo's chest. "I should have attempted to appropriate your vessel sooner," she murmured playfully. Xylo chuckled, the sound resonating deep within his chest. "I should have apprehended more captivating aliens attempting to hijack my starship." They knew they could not remain indefinitely within their secluded haven. The mission loomed, and with it, perils neither could fully anticipate. Yet, something fundamental had shifted between them, a deeper comprehension, a connection that transcended mere physical attraction. As they prepared for their infiltration, donning the uniforms of supply workers, Xylo observed Lyra watching him with an unreadable expression. "What troubles you?" he inquired, adjusting his collar. "I have just realized something," she replied, stepping close to straighten his identification badge. "When I initially encountered you, I believed I required your vessel to salvage my world. But now—" She looked up at him, her quicksilver eyes shining. "Now, I realize I needed you." Xylo cupped her face in his hands, deeply moved by the vulnerability in her voice. "Well, princess, you possess both. And I am not departing." They shared one last, lingering kiss before stepping into the corridor, prepared to confront whatever challenges awaited them. The quantium crystal was secured within a concealed compartment of Lyra's uniform, and Xylo's various weaponry was discreetly hidden beneath his worker's attire. As they navigated the docking bay, bypassing various inspection points with their forged credentials, Xylo couldn't help but marvel at the transformative trajectory of his life. A mere week prior, he had been a simple smuggler, seeking his next lucrative contract. Now he was infiltrating a planetary blockade alongside a captivating alien female who had pilfered not merely his vessel, but his very heart. The irony was not lost upon him. She had failed to steal his ship that first day, but she had succeeded in taking something far more precious, and he had surrendered it willingly. The maintenance tunnels beneath the Xylosian docking complex were dimly illuminated and constricting, forcing Xylo and Lyra into close proximity, not that either of them harbored any objections. After their intimate encounter aboard the ship, every accidental touch carried amplified significance, every shared glance held a deeper understanding. "The data center should be through here," Lyra whispered, consulting a holographic map projected from a small device on her wrist. Her free hand rested upon Xylo's arm, the warmth of her touch penetrating his worker's uniform. Xylo nodded, keeping his voice low. "Any Zentinas?" "Primarily automated systems. The Ascended exhibit a preference for machines over organic security." She shuddered slightly. "They deem living beings inefficient." They reached a sealed door, emblazoned with warning symbols in the flowing script of Xylosian text. Lyra placed her palm against the scanner, utilizing credentials she had procured from her resistance contacts. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, banks of quantum processors hummed quietly, their crystalline matrices glowing with stored data. Lyra moved swiftly to a central terminal, while Xylo maintained vigilance, his modified blaster concealed but readily accessible beneath his uniform jacket. "Something is amiss," Lyra muttered, her fingers flying across the holographic interface. "These readings, they defy logic." Xylo moved closer, placing a protective hand on her lower back. "Elaborate." "The Ascended, they are not merely endeavoring to transform our bodies into vessels," she explained, her voice trembling. "They are utilizing our neural patterns, our very consciousness, as fuel." "Fuel for what?" Before she could answer, a new hologram materialized in the center of the room. Unlike the simplistic data displays, this one depicted a colossal structure floating in space, a construct that seemed to defy the established laws of physics, its geometry shifting in ways that induced ocular discomfort. "Bei the celestial spheres." Lyra breathed. "It is a quantum bridge. They are constructing a gateway to facilitate the transit of their entire civilization to this reality." Xylo studied the rotating image, his tactical mind already analyzing the ramifications. "How many are we quantifying?" "Millions." "Billions, perhaps." The Ascended are not merely a formidable race, they are refugees from a dying universe. They have been seeking a new reality to inhabit, and they have selected ours. She turned to face him, her quicksilver eyes wide with horror. "My people are not destined to be their vessels, we are to be their batteries." Xylo drew her close, feeling her tremble against him. The sheer horror of their discovery amplified the urgency of their mission. "We shall thwart them," he promised, his lips brushing her forehead. How? They possess such vastly superior technology. They have manipulated entire civilizations, traversed between universes. They may be advanced, Xylo stated firmly, but they have never encountered humans before. We possess a certain aptitude for disrupting the meticulously crafted schemes of other species. A ghost of a smile crossed Lyra's face. Is that the rationale for my inexplicable attraction to you? Your species' inherent talent for chaos. I presumed it was my rugged charm and devastatingly handsome features, he teased, attempting to alleviate the tension. Their playful banter was interrupted by a sudden shift in the room's ambient lighting. The quantum processors began pulsing with an eerie rhythm, and new data streams appeared on the surrounding screens. They are initiating the final phase, Lyra gasped, turning back to the terminal. The quantum bridge, it is not merely a theoretical construct. They are actively constructing it now, utilizing the combined neural energy of thousands of transformed Xylotians. Xylo watched as she downloaded the new data, his mind racing with possibilities. Could we sabotage it? Potentially. But... She paused, her expression shifting to one of wonder. Wait, this is extraordinary. The Ascended, they are not as invulnerable as they profess. The quantum bridge necessitates precise calculations, perfect harmony within the neural network. Even a minor disruption could. She never completed her sentence. A new presence permeated the room, not a physical entity, but a palpable pressure within their minds, akin to standing in close proximity to a potent electromagnetic field. The very air seemed to crystallize around them. Fascinating, a voice echoed within their minds, devoid of any discernible physical origin. A human and a Xylotian collaborating. How inefficient. Xylo positioned Lyra behind him, his blaster now drawn, despite his awareness that it would likely prove futile against their unseen observer. Reveal yourself. Physical embodiment is so restrictive, the voice continued. We relinquished such limitations eons ago. Though soon, courtesy of your species' neural patterns, we shall possess the energy to manifest in ways you cannot comprehend. Lyra clutched the quantium crystal containing their pilfered data. You are abominations, she spat. You are not advancing our species, you are consuming us. Evolution necessitates sacrifice. Your consciousness will serve a nobler purpose as an integral component of our collective. The voice adopted an almost inquisitive tone. But you, human, you are distinct. Your species' neural patterns are chaotic, unpredictable. You would constitute inadequate batteries, but intriguing test subjects. Xylo felt a pressure intensifying within his head, as if something were attempting to pry into his thoughts. But instead of fear, he experienced a surge of righteous anger. Vacate my consciousness, he growled. To everyone's astonishment, the pressure receded. The voice actually sounded perplexed. Intriguing. Your mind, it resists us. Perhaps this explains why the human species was quarantined by the elder races. You are dangerous. Damn right we are, Xylo smirked, backing toward the door with Lyra. And we're about to become your worst nightmare. The presence seemed to ripple with something akin to amusement. You cannot impede what has already commenced. The bridge nears completion. Soon, our entire civilization will traverse. Your rudimentary weaponry and emotional attachments are inconsequential against the inexorable tide of evolution. As if to underscore the point, the hologram of the quantum bridge flared brighter, its impossible geometry now exhibiting indications of tangible construction throughout the Xylotian system. But Xylo was not observing the hologram. He was gazing at Lyra, perceiving the unwavering determination in her quicksilver eyes, feeling the warmth of her body pressed against his. In that instant, he comprehended something profound. The Ascended, for all their advanced technology, were incapable of grasping the essence of sentience. You know what your fundamental flaw is, he addressed the presence. You have forgotten the significance of emotion, of affection, of striving for something beyond mere survival. The pressure within the room intensified. Love? Love is inefficient. Emotion is a frailty to be transcended. No, Lyra countered firmly, her hand finding Xylo's. It is what imbues us with strength. Strength sufficient to thwart you. They fled then, through the sealed door and back into the maintenance tunnels. The presence did not pursue, could not pursue, Xylo realized. For all their power, the Ascended were confined to their network, their meticulously controlled systems. As they made their way back toward their ship, Xylo pulled Lyra into an alcove, needing to hold her, to reassure himself that certain things were worth fighting for. Their kiss was fierce, passionate, a defiant act against the cold, sterile logic of their adversary. "I love you, Lyra," he whispered against her lips. "Not because it is efficient or logical, but because you make me feel alive." Xylo grinned, his emerald eyes sparkling with determination. "Excellent. Because I possess a completely illogical, potentially suicidal strategy to salvage your world."
"Naturally, you do," Sherlock hit softly.
"You are human." Back aboard their ship, disguised as the Star Wanderer, Xylo and Lyra worked feverishly to analyze the Quantium Crystal's data. The small captain's quarters had been transformed into their war room, strewn with holographic displays and computational models. Despite the urgency of their task, neither could ignore the intimate atmosphere of their shared space. "The neural network is analogous to a symphony," Lyra explained, her fingers dancing through the holographic projections. "Each transformed Xylosian contributes a specific frequency to energize the quantum bridge." Xylo watched her work, admiring how her crimson skin seemed to glow in the light of the holograms. "And we are required to transform that symphony into
Des Metal?"
She shot him an amused look. "I am unfamiliar with that term. But yes, we must introduce chaos into their perfect harmony." Her expression softened. "That is why our encounter was not mere fortuity. Humans inherently generate the precise type of neural patterns that can disrupt their network." "So that is the source of your affections?" Xylo teased, drawing her into his lap.
"My chaotic brain waffes."
"Among other attributes," she purred, running her fingers through his beard. But her playful demeanor did not endure. "The transformation process is accelerating. We possess perhaps 12 hours before the bridge is sufficiently stable for the crossing to commence." Xylo nuzzled her neck, inhaling her exotic scent. "Then we had best make every moment count." They devoted the subsequent hours to formulating their plan, their professional focus occasionally punctuated by stolen kisses and tender caresses. The intimacy they shared seemed to fuel their ingenuity, each touch sparking fresh insights. "Here," Lyra pointed to a particular data stream. "The quantum processors we observed are merely nodes within a larger network. The primary control hub is situated within the capital's central spire."
"Heavy security. The most formidable. But..."
She bit her lip, a gesture Xylo had come to adore. "They will not be anticipating anyone attempting to breach it. The Ascended believe they have already achieved victory." Xylo studied the schematics.
"Predepreceding a fall. A classic Villinus miscalculation."
"You are deriving amusement from this, are you not?" Lyra inquired, tracing patterns on his chest. "Sweetheart, I am on the verge of assisting my captivating alien paramour in salvaging her entire species by essentially thinking intensely about the magnitude of my affection for her. What is there not to relish?" Her quicksilver eyes widened. "Is that your intended strategy? To utilize our connection as the chaos element?" "Why not?" The Ascended asserted that human minds are unpredictable, and nothing renders us more unpredictable than love. He cupped her face in his hands. "Furthermore, I possess a certain degree of experience in causing your neural patterns to deviate." She blushed a deeper shade of crimson, recalling their passionate encounters. "That is genuinely brilliant. The quantum bridge necessitates perfect harmony, but intense emotions, particularly between disparate species, could destabilize their entire system." Xylo completed the thought with a grin. "Sometimes, the most efficacious solutions are the most straightforward." They dedicated the next hour to finalizing their preparations, their movements around the ship's cabin an intimate ballet of efficiency and desire. Each piece of equipment they prepared, each detail they finalized, was punctuated by tender touches and meaningful glances. "The security protocols alter in 30 minutes, Lyra stated, consulting her datapad. "That constitutes our window of opportunity to reach the central spire." Xylo drew her close, his emerald eyes intense. "Regardless of what transpires within, I desire you to comprehend that your attempted appropriation of my vessel was the most felicitous event anyone has ever perpetrated against me." She laughed softly, pressing herself against him. Even though I was unsuccessful? Oh, you were successful, his voice dropped to a husky whisper. Merely not in the manner you anticipated. Their kiss was deep, passionate, a pledge of things to come. When they finally separated, both were breathing heavily. We should depart, Lyra whispered, though she made no effort to extricate herself from his embrace. In a moment, Xylo replied, capturing her lips once more. Initially, I must ensure my neural patterns are sufficiently chaotic. Their final preparations were delayed by an intense expression of their affections, their bodies and minds converging in a manner that would have horrified the efficiency-obsessed Ascended. In the aftermath, as they lay entangled within the captain's bunk, Lyra traced the line of Xylo's jaw. The Ascended were accurate regarding one aspect, she murmured. Humans are dangerous. You have completely disrupted my meticulously ordered existence. Complaints? None. She kissed him softly. My people required a degree of disruption. We were excessively fixated upon order, upon progress at any cost. Perhaps that is the rationale for the Ascended selection of us. We were already halfway to becoming their ideal batteries. Xylo sat up, pulling her with him. Well, they are about to discover that batteries can explode, if overcharged. They dressed swiftly, verifying their weaponry and equipment. The plan was perilous. They would be required to reach the central processing hub, upload their modified data, and utilize their own neural patterns to corrupt the network. Success signified the salvation of an entire species. Failure entailed demise, or worse. Prepared? Xylo inquired, adjusting his tactical gear. Lyra nodded, her earlier vulnerability supplanted by unwavering determination. Prepared. Though I still find it incredulous that our clandestine weapon is essentially engaging in amorous congress within the core of their quantum processor. Hey, if we are to perish, might as well perish, spectacularly, he quipped. She groaned at the atrocious pun, but her eyes sparkled with amusement and affection. Simply bear in mind, we must synchronize it precisely. The instant we upload the modified data, we shall have precisely 3 minutes before the system adapts. 3 minutes. Xylo waggled his eyebrows. I can function within those parameters. You are incorrigible, she laughed, checking her weapons one final time. That is the fundamental concept, princess. That is precisely the fundamental concept. They shared one final kiss before unsealing the ship's hatch, prepared to confront whatever awaited them. As they moved through the shadows of the docking bay, Xylo couldn't help but marvel at how profoundly his life had been altered. A mere handful of days prior, he had apprehended a captivating alien endeavoring to appropriate his vessel. Now, he was on the verge of assisting her in salvaging her world through the power of love. The universe, he concluded, possessed an unconventional sense of humor. The central spire of Xylo's capital pierced the amethyst sky like a crystalline needle, its surface reflecting the light of its 3 moons. Xylo and Lyra maneuvered through the shadows of its base, their bodies in perfect synchronicity after days of intimate partnership. Security drones ahead, Lyra whispered, her quicksilver eyes gleaming in the darkness. Pattern of 3, rotating every 45 seconds. Xylo pressed against her in the narrow maintenance shaft, his breath warm upon her neck. Precisely like a dance, princess. Adhere to my lead. They waited for the opportune moment, then slipped between the drone patrols with fluid grace, their movements mirroring each other's perfectly, a testament to their burgeoning connection. Each touch, each shared glance, bore the weight of their mission and their deepening affections. The primary quantum core is 50 levels above, Lyra murmured as they reached a service elevator. But the security intensifies with each ascending level. A propitious circumstance that we are not ascending then, Xylo's emerald eyes twinkled with mischief. We are descending. Lyra's expression shifted from bewilderment to comprehension. The maintenance tunnels, they connect to the core's cooling system. And if there is one axiom I have gleaned from smuggling cargo, Xylo grinned, drawing her close, it is that everyone neglects to safeguard the plumbing. Their descent through the building's infrastructure was akin to navigating an alien labyrinth. Steam pipes and quantum conduits created a maze of obstacles, but Xylo and Lyra traversed them with practiced ease, their bodies functioning in harmonious accord. An alarm suddenly blared above them, causing both to freeze. They have detected an anomaly within the neural network, Lyra translated, reading a nearby display. The transformed Xylotians, they are becoming unstable. Xylo pulled her into an alcove as a security team rushed past on the level above. Our presence is already disrupting the system. No, Lyra's eyes widened with realization. It is you. Merely your presence here. Your inherent neural patterns. You are akin to a virus within their meticulously ordered system. He waggled his eyebrows. I do tend to exert that effect upon ordered societies. Their quiet laughter was curtailed by the sound of heavy machinery. The maintenance tunnel began to shift, walls realigning as the building's automated systems responded to the alert. Run. Xylo grasped Lyra's hand, and they sprinted through the shifting corridors. Each turn presented fresh challenges, security fields, automated defenses, and the omnipresent threat of discovery. They reached a junction where the cooling systems fed directly into the quantum core. Steam hissed from massive pipes, creating an otherworldly ambience. Lyra pressed against Xylo, her crimson skin glistening with moisture. The core chamber is through there, she pointed to a heavily shielded door. But the security protocols. Xylo silenced her with a kiss, deep and passionate. When they separated, both were breathing heavily. Recall what disrupts their systems, he grinned. Let us provide them with something to genuinely agonize over. They approached the door, making no attempt to conceal their presence. As anticipated, the security systems immediately detected them, but the readings they obtained were unlike anything they had been programmed to process. Warning, an automated voice announced. Anomalous neural patterns detected. Unable to classify. Unable to predict. System error. The door's quantum locks began to malfunction, their perfect sequences disrupted by the chaos of human emotion and cross-species attraction. Xylo and Lyra exploited the confusion, slipping through the failing security measures. The core chamber was a cathedral of light and energy. Quantum processors lined the walls, their crystalline matrices pulsing with the combined consciousness of thousands of transformed Xylotians. At the center, a massive column of pure energy stretched from floor to ceiling, the heart of the bridge that would facilitate the Ascendant's incursion into their universe. By the celestial spheres. Lyra breathed, momentarily overwhelmed by the spectacle. Xylo squeezed her hand. Focus, princess. Where do we upload the modified data? Before she could respond, the air crystallized around them. The presence they had previously encountered returned, its power amplified. Fascinating, the voice echoed within their minds. You genuinely believed you could reach this location undetected? We have been observing your progress, studying your intriguing method of disruption. Security drones materialized around them, weapons charged. But Xylo noticed something peculiar. The drones were not firing, and their positioning was erratic. You are experiencing difficulty controlling them, are you not? He taunted. Excessive chaos within the system? The presence rippled with something akin to frustration. Your species' resistance to our influence is problematic. But ultimately, inconsequential. We have evolved beyond such rudimentary limitations. Indeed. Xylo drew Lyra closer, feeling her heart racing against his chest. Then why do I perceive trepidation in your voice? We do not experience trepidation, the presence insisted, but the quantum processors surrounding them flickered erratically. We are beyond emotion. That constitutes your vulnerability, Lyra declared, comprehension dawning in her quicksilver eyes. You have forgotten the significance of feeling, of affection, of striving for something beyond sterile logic. Xylo met her gaze, seeing his own passion reflected there. Without warning, he pulled her into a kiss that encompassed all the fervor and chaos of humanity's defiant spirit. The effect upon the chamber was instantaneous. Quantum processors overloaded, security systems crashed, and the very air seemed to vibrate with disrupted energy. Impossible! The presence gasped as its control systems began to fail. This magnitude of neural disruption. That, you crystalline fiends, is the power of love, Xylo growled, holding Lyra protectively as chaos erupted around them. Now, sweetheart, let us demonstrate what transpires when one attempts to process pure human emotion through their perfect system. Lyra retrieved the quantium crystal, its data prepared for uploading. But now both comprehended that the data was merely a catalyst. Their connection, their affection, their very presence, constituted the true weapon against the Ascended's frigid perfection. The final battle for Xylo's soul had commenced. And at its heart stood a human and his alien love, prepared to demonstrate that, occasionally, the most potent force in the universe is not technology or evolution, but the chaos of two hearts beating as one. The quantum core chamber erupted in a dazzling display of energy as the ascended entity manifested its physical form. The crystalline entity towered above Xylo and Lyra, its geometric patterns shifting in impossible ways, radiating ancient power and cold contempt. Your resistance is fascinating but futile, the entity's voice resonated through their minds. We have existed for billions of years, perfecting ourselves beyond organic limitations. Xylo stood protectively in front of Lyra, though she quickly moved to his side, their shoulders touching. Yeah, well, I've existed for 34 years, and I've spent most of them breaking things people thought were perfect. The quantum crystal in Lyra's hand pulsed with increasing intensity, responding to their combined neural patterns. Her silver eyes widened with sudden understanding. Xylo, she whispered urgently. The transformed Xylotians, I can feel them through the network, they're not gone just sleeping. And they're dreaming of freedom. The ascended entity rippled with displeasure. Their consciousness serves a greater purpose now, their dreams are irrelevant. Wrong, Xylo declared, pulling Lyra closer. Dreams are everything. They're what make us fight, what make us love, what makes us human or Xylotian. As if in response to his words, the quantum processors lining the walls began to pulse with a new rhythm. The transformed Xylotians, their neural patterns synchronized through the Ascended's network, were responding to the chaos of human emotion bleeding through the system. Now, sweetheart, Xylo grinned at Lyra, show them what happens when you combine Xylotian precision with human chaos.